This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
At last, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy. This is the tagline on the cover of each issue of the Marvel Star Wars comics from 1977 and beyond. I am Richard Woloski, and I want to welcome you all to Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics. I am here to take you through the story, share memories of reading the series as a kid, and to make sure you younger fans realize there are many parallels and foreshadowing to the current Star Wars films in these issues.
Yes. All right, and I am Sarah. I am Richard's wife, and now this is the show where we take you through each issue of the vintage comic series from the 70s and 80s. So no new comics here. This is all the nice vintage stuff. And since I'm seeing these for the very first time, I'm going to give you a very fresh perspective and just my initial thoughts on these comics.
And I am Randy Martinez, Star Wars artist, and I am here to share my memories, childhood stories, and to give my very unique insight from the point of view of an artist and from having very many years with Lucasfilm and understanding how all of that works.
Right on. But you know what? Before we dive into this episode, let's start off by thanking everyone for their support at Star Wars Celebration Orlando.
Yeah, we were all there, and we got so many great comments about the show. And then, Randy, you and Richard and I, we all had special buttons, didn't we?
That's right, we did. They looked really, really great.
I can't tell you how many people came up to me during the convention and yelled, "Forp!" And when you're just getting off a plane, when someone yells that at you,
that's true.
It's like, "Hey, what did I do to you?"
Actually,
yeah, it's a little unsettling.
And then we happened to be in the same airport terminal flying out of Orlando. So we all had a mini classic Marvel Star Wars comics reunion there at the airport. And there was a couple of our listeners too who found us. So
that's right.
That's right.
And we almost had a live podcast of me getting thrown off the airplane.
That's right.
Not for anything that I did wrong.
No.
Well, the pilot had heard issue number 7 where you didn't give some favorable remarks to Jackson. So said, hey, you off the plane. Jackson is our favorite green 7-foot bunny in a red jumpsuit. We heard what you said. Get off.
Now, we should preface this by the fact that this was not United.
No, it was not United. But
that was JetBlue, right?
That was only like a week before, so that was like very much in the news. And there was another incident that was in the news that we were joking about. Everybody on the planes were talking about it and joking about it, and I was joking about it. Of course, I can't resist. And Denise was joking about it, and then that happened. So,
boy, can you imagine had you made a big deal about being thrown off the plane coming back to Los Angeles? You could have been $2.5 million richer.
Oh.
I know. I thought about that afterwards.
Well, you're a good person, so I'm glad you didn't.
I would have liked to have seen him try to throw me up. Like, literally, not that I would put up a fight, but I just want to see him. Those girls just try to drag me off. Like seriously, just go ahead. I'll lay still. Just try to get me off.
All
Exactly.
6'5" of Randy being dragged down the aisle.
Well, so what actually happened? Like, you guys had seats, but someone was in your seats?
So this is the short version of it. Basically, we had gotten to the airport really, really early, and we had our seats changed. We got there early enough because we did not have an aisle seat, and I have really long legs, so I always got to get there early in case they have an open seat, which they did. So they were very happy to change our seats. It was fine, and we moved, and it was great. Got up to the when they were checking us in, and they're like, "Oh, we moved your seats." We're like, "What?" And so we got in there, and they moved our seats. They weren't where we wanted them. And then somebody else came in and said, "You're sitting in our seats." We're like, "Well, these are the seats they gave us." And there was almost a little thing between us and the passengers. Like, look, this wasn't my fault. This wasn't your fault. This is the airline's fault. Let's not have this right here. So that's why I was like up, standing there the whole time, and it was taking forever. and getting mad, like, what's going on? Like, we had seats, then you took them away, gave us some other seats, and then you gave those to somebody else. So, like, what's going on? So,
Wow.
and Denise was like, take it easy. And she's talking to the people there at the airline, saying, hey, listen, this guy is a Star Wars artist. A bunch of his fans are on this plane. He's on a podcast. The podcast is actually here, able to go live. So you guys really, it's your best interest to get us seats.
Wow.
If you want any bad publicity, you came to the right plane.
Right.
Even though it's
Yeah.
your plane.
Yeah, so while I was, texting you, Richard, you thought I was joking, like, get ready to go online quick. I was, like, serious.
I see.
Yeah, all of a sudden I look at the front of the plane, and there's, like, Randy standing there. Randy, you just sat down 10 minutes ago. What?
Right.
What are you doing?
Uh-huh.
Now, can you imagine the scoop and the publicity that Skywalking through Neverland would get by having an exclusive, video and podcast going while a passenger being thrown off?
That would be
no,
awesome.
seeing how we're really reinvigorating our YouTube channel, that would have made headlines.
Exactly. See, so
Well, you know what? All's well that ends well. We both made it, or all four of us made it to Los Angeles, so here
Yep.
we are.
and they bought me a beer.
Oh, good. Nice.
Quick, give him alcohol. He'll forget this whole thing. He'll never talk about it on a podcast.
They were very apologetic, and the beer was like, okay, you're taking steps in the right direction.
Nice.
Yeah, this show is not only about Star Wars; it's informative of how to get free alcohol.
There you go.
All right, now with that, weeks later, here we are back to recording this next episode of Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, where we're going to cover issue number 14, The Sound of Armageddon. Now, once again, the writers at Marvel changed their minds since they ended the last issue where they called it Call It Armageddon.
Oh, okay.
Will they ever keep continuity?
No.
They never will.
I'm sorry.
All right, now, let's catch everyone up with where we left off with the last issue, Day of the Dragon Lords. Luke Skywalker had been forced to join the evil Governor Quarg's group in their battle against the Dragon Lords. Meanwhile... Oh, sorry. Randy?
Meanwhile,
Crimson Jack's space cruiser is being pulled toward the water planet below by Quarg's sonic jammer. This disruption is all Han Solo, Chewbacca, and the Princess need to escape in the Millennium Falcon. The Falcon splashes down onto the water-covered surface of Drexel, right in the middle of an epic battle between Quarg's men and the Dragon Lords, with Luke Skywalker caught right in the middle.
So now, in this issue number 14, we pick back up as Quarg and the Dragon Lords are still at battle. So we're right in the middle of the battle. Han is believed dead after the crash, which enrages Chewbacca, and Chewbacca attacks Luke. Now, Quarg continues to struggle to pull down Crimson Jack's giant stolen Star Destroyer with his sonic jammer. Randy?
meanwhile,
The Dragon Lords have rescued Han and have taken him to a secret underground cave. The leader of the Dragon Lords, do we ever get his name? The leader?
Well, I've got a special name for him.
Oh, okay.
Don Juan Quixote 2.
Quixote?
Quixote 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hote.
Quixote.
Well, this leader, Don Juan Quixote II, for lack of a better name, of the Dragon Lords, he tells Han that Quarg's jammer is driving the sea serpents mad and slowly killing them. Han agrees to help if they agree to help him in return by salvaging the Millennium Falcon. Now, meanwhile, Randy,
Meanwhile,
Governor Quarg has found Princess Leia hiding within the Millennium Falcon and wants to use her demise as an example to her friends. Luke reunites with Han and fills him in on his plan that will do away with Quarg and the Sonic Jammer and help save the Sea Dragons at the same time.
Exciting stuff to come.
Yeah.
Now, this issue came out May 9th, 1978, and was written by Archie Goodwin, consulting editor Jim Shooter, penciled by Carmine Infantino and Terry Austin, coloring by Janice Cohen, and cover art by Carmine Infantino and Terry Austin.
Also here in the credits, it says the letterer is Denise Wohl. The colorist is Janice Cohen. So were these women? Were there women actually working on these comics?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
That's cool. I think this is the first time I've seen a woman's name in the working on these 70s comics.
Well, right on. Now, let's talk about this cover, which we previewed at Star Wars Celebration Orlando on our podcast stage. And I think people liked seeing the mini episode live and in person.
Yes.
Now, this cover depicts all of our heroes in an action pose.
Right.
We have Luke, Han, Leia, 3PO, R2, and Chewbacca. There's no narration and there's no dialogue.
And there's no baddies here either. It's just all the good guys against the world, I guess.
All right, so Randy, describe to us what we're seeing on this cover.
Well, this is a straightforward action comic book cover. You know, you have all the exciting poses of, you know, the blaster fire coming out of Han's huge laser rifle, you know, pushing him back. And Luke has a blaster and a lightsaber, which, you know, he can do two things at once. You got Chewbacca, you know, enraged with a little tiny gun. And you have Princess Leia back there doing her part, firing away. You have all of the angles covered. You have blaster fire shooting up from the left side and up. You have the lightsaber going from the right side and up. You have Chewbacca's blaster to the right side shooting out. And you have C-3PO, and his angle is actually angled to be shooting up and to the right. And then you have R2-D2 down there kind of anchoring things over there on the right side. Even the legs you have here on Luke Skywalker are taking you to the corner of the page, as is Han Solo's gray leg there. So it's very straightforward, classic composition, kind of like a starburst, and the psychedelic kind of background kind of just adds to that whole thing. Straight out from the middle. And, of course, it isn't without some quirks that some of the fans were nice enough to point out. And, you know, you have the artist here in Infantino, which I have stated before, very good artist, not of my taste, but a very, very skilled and very talented artist. But for me, still the exciting part is Austin's inking job, who he was also famous in countless other comic books for his inking, but his inking to me is really, even inside of the comic, is the star of these comics as far as the art goes.
Now, do you recall seeing this for the first time? I know you weren't around when this first came out. Oh, no, you were. No,
I was around.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Okay, well, but were you old enough to really comprehend what was going on here?
Probably not.
All right, so the first time you did see this cover, do you recall what you thought?
I honestly can't think back that far, but I can just imagine what I would have. It's just that it said Star Wars, which would be a big deal. And then there's Chewbacca, and you know, it's exciting, and there's all the heroes from the movie. So what's there not to grab the attention of somebody who just loves the movie? I mean, who cares what's on the inside? You see everybody you love from the movie there. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later when we get to some of the Facebook comments, but you remember this, there was only one way to see the movie, and that was at the movie theater at the time. And other than that, you depended on, you know, things like Starlog magazine and comic books, and that's pretty much it until those little hand cranked movie things. Remember those? You had a little clip, the little toy with the cassettes. Other than that, or the records, the Story of Star Wars records. I don't know when those came out, but you probably do, Richard. But
oh yeah, that came out in '78. And
there you go.
To me, that was my Blu-ray player.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it until the 80s when we got VHS tapes.
Yep. Yeah, in '82.
Yeah, just to see these guys on anything, it was really, really cool. And there wasn't anything about this piece that was outside of what we knew of Star Wars. So maybe there was a reason for that. Maybe Star Wars comics weren't selling as well, so they just wanted to get back to just giving what the common person knew of Star Wars.
This is kind of reminding me, your guys' reactions to this cover back in the 70s is kind of my reaction to the cover of Heir to the Empire from the books, the 91 novels. Like seeing those Star Wars figures on the cover, that it was new, something new that had Star Wars on it. So I totally understand your feelings.
Oh, when I saw this in the news rack at the Oakley Spa in Newton, Massachusetts, I fell in love with this instantly because here was all of our heroes in one action pose.
Nice.
And it looked so much like a movie poster that I want to say, but I don't want to say, I think this is the first thing I've ever stolen in my life.
What?
Because it was in the news rack, and it's like, oh my goodness. And I recall picking it up, looking at it, and walking out the door.
Because you were so excited?
I was so excited. I didn't even think about paying for this comic, at a king's ransom of 35 cents.
Wow.
And I got home and my mother said, "Where'd you get that? From the store? What'd you use to pay for it?" It's like, oh, whoops.
Did she take you back?
Yeah, then she gave me the 35 cents to go back and pay the owner. Now, I say that I stole it. I'd say more I borrowed it because, I did pay him like an hour later.
That's so cute.
But I do recall.
Sounds like justifying to me.
Yeah. You know what? Call it what it will. It's over the statute of limitation, okay?
Yeah.
So now, would you say, Richard, is this your favorite of these Marvel comic covers?
Of the expanded universe comic covers, definitely yes. Because up until this point, we've had Han and Chewie or Luke and the droids.
Right.
But now here the band is back together. And look
Yeah.
at that pose. You have the laser blast, the lightsaber, you have R2 and 3PO, and Chewie looking as big and mighty as he was. Oh, it could do no wrong.
Well, it's great. Yeah, it's like all of our heroes versus the world, really. And actually, that gave me hope for this issue because in the last issue, we ended with Chewie was like fighting Luke, right? And
Yeah.
he was bad Chewie. It's like
I didn't like
bad.
that.
No, not at all. So now, looking at this cover, I'm like, oh well, hopefully all our heroes get together in this issue,
And they all make nice.
I was not disappointed. Yes.
All right, now we put this out on our Facebook group page asking the Skywalkers to comment. So Sarah, out of all these comments from the Skywalkers about this cover, what one really sticks out to you?
Okay, so there's a couple, but I'm gonna say my favorite comment, and this is from Ryan Stamfley, who said that our heroes, they've definitely been hitting the gym and putting a dent in Marvel's already considerable spandex budget. Luke is a mask and tattoo away from being Iron Fist. Now that's really funny because we just finished watching the series. Tactically, they are in a pickle. Judging by their angle of fire, their opponents have the high ground. So I thought those were very good, funny comments and astute comments.
Right, insightful.
Yes.
All right, Randy, which one of these comments stuck out to you?
Well, I got to go to Patty Hammond because she actually asked me to talk about my response to her on the show. So I'm honoring her wishes.
Aw.
She's going through the back door, isn't she?
Yeah, she did. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So, she asked, first thoughts, why is Chewbacca holding a blaster instead of a bowcaster? Now, usually you guys know this, all the listeners know this, I usually kind of give a smart aleck remark to everything because that's just how I am on Facebook and in life and on the phone and everything. But anyways.
Oh, I noticed.
When a good question is asked, I tend to kind of straighten up and give an honest answer. And there's a good answer for this, is that Chewbacca, actually, if everybody watches very closely, we actually never see Chewbacca holding a bowcaster in the movies until Return of the Jedi. Now, we actually, for a second in the original cut of Star Wars, see him place a rifle, which we're assuming is his bowcaster, up against the wall when he's going into the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon in Docking Bay 94, when Han Solo tells him to go get the ship ready. But we never see him use it until they actually put the scene of Jabba the Hutt back in special edition when we finally see Chewbacca in A New Hope holding his bowcaster. Now, other than that, there's been some photos back in 1977-78 of Chewbacca holding this thing called the bowcaster. Now, even the figure looks like it's suggesting some kind of bowcaster, but if you never saw a bowcaster picture, you wouldn't know that was supposed to be a bowcaster. It just looks like a special rifle that Chewbacca is holding on the figure. So the bowcaster itself is actually never seen in the movies, which is a big part of the reference point for a lot of these comics, until Return of the Jedi. So, timeline-wise, in 1978, nobody would know exactly except what Chewbacca would be firing, except for the blaster rifle that he fires in the Death Star.
Right.
Or does he have the blaster rifle? I can't remember that. I think he does.
Well, he does have that long rifle when Luke and Han, dressed as stormtroopers, march him into the cell block. He's got that big long rifle.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But that's not his bowcaster.
No.
And then in Empire Strikes Back, he's firing the only time he fires a weapon is when he fires the stormtrooper blaster rifle
on Cloud City. Right.
Yeah.
So you would think they would give him a big, giant laser rifle then instead of this little tiny Flash Gordon pistol.
Well, that's fair enough to say that, but and you're probably right, except for it obviously would not fit on the cover.
Right. so I'm sure the original version did have a large rifle, but it's like, oh, you know what? It's going off the page. Let's just shrink this back. No one's looking at his rifle, at his blaster anyway. They're all looking at the central part of the picture, which is all the heroes not looking at Chewie's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they probably said, okay, do we give him a big gun or his hands up? It's either a big gun or his hands up. We can't do both.
Right.
I would just say, let's just have his hands free.
Yeah.
Give him that big Wookiee roar.
He can pull people's arms out of their sockets. What more you need?
You don't need no stinking laser gun, pistol, water gun.
All right, Richard, what do these comments stick out to you?
Come on over here to our good friend Joshua Stolte,
Oh, good.
better known as Jedi Schwa. He says, it's brilliant. This is a perfect example of my personal golden age of Star Wars. Look at them. All 6 of them are superheroes, and the background screams rock concert. It epitomizes my childhood. The balance of the composition is like choreography in action, with the possible exception of the questionable, though likely intentional, placement of Luke's blaster, which is a Freudian's dream.
Now, I read that, and I'm like, wait, what? And I look at his blaster.
Yeah, if you notice, Luke's hand is holding a laser pistol, and it's right in front of Han's
Crotch.
Boing.
Let's just say
private
it.
member crotch area.
Wow.
You know what, Josh? I hadn't noticed that.
I had not noticed that either, and Han's crotch is like thrusting forward.
Yeah, with Luke's pistol in a very awkward position. That would make Freud go, yeah, we see what's going on.
Uh-huh. Wow. Thanks, Josh.
There's a Padme joke in there I'm just not going to make.
Thanks, Jedi Schwa. All right.
Now, some people would think that, like, well, that's just coincidence, thinking that. But as an artist, I'll let you know that those things aren't accidents.
No. If
no.
If you follow the history of the Disney artists, nothing's ever an accident. All right, with that, before we get into the PG-10 area rating, let's we want to make sure that we're heard all the way over there in Brazil. Isn't that the country that if you make one reference to India? It's India. Yeah, maybe if you make too many of these references, they won't air you.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The podcast iTunes store, like you're if you are explicit anywhere, you're like banned from certain countries.
So we want to be heard in India, so let's just stop it there.
Yes.
All right.
Now, is that just in English, or can we say it in Spanish?
I don't know.
Let's not tempt fate. All right. Now, with that, let's move on before Randy goes on to a direction that'll.
Because I'll find the Swahili way to say things if I need to.
Randy will ban us in Canada as well.
Yep.
All right. With that, I love this issue, but Randy, what are your initial thoughts of the Sound of Armageddon?
Well, the sound is deafening, and and actually, I never pay attention to the title too much. But actually, I really liked this episode, and this is like episode. Now, Sarah, you got me.
I know, sorry.
This issue, because I feel like I remember last issue I was saying it felt more like it was just kind of leading up to something, and this comic to me has the whole package in it, and it actually, of all the EU comics, this one felt more like a Star Wars movie. It had a lot of different layers of things going on. The characters are actually written pretty well. They all have reasons for what they're doing and motivations. And I actually really, this might have been my favorite of the EU ones so far.
Oh, okay.
I like some of the characters, like Jackson, better. But as far as the story goes, this one felt like it could be actually something that happened to them in the storyline.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, Randy, I echo a lot of your thoughts. One of the things I do for my job is I teach kids some of the elements of story. And so while reading this issue, a lot of my teachings kind of came back to me because this story here is very well put together. There's a clear hero, there's a clear heroes, there's a clear plot, like what they're trying to do, each person, and there's a clear conflict to each of the plot, what they're trying to do, and then a clear resolution. So I really liked how everything in this episode dovetailed with each other. And you're right, the story is what really brought me in. And the fact that the last episode just seemed like such a lead up, and this episode you're finally getting that payoff. It's like, and I was so excited. I was flipping the pages. Richard, I think you were surprised at how fast I got through this comic, because I couldn't stop reading. I was like, ooh, this is exciting. Ooh, what's next? Ooh, so I really loved this one.
Took me a week to read this.
Oh. Well, what about you, Richard?
All right. This is a very action-packed issue. There's something always going on, not just physically, but emotionally. There's always consequences and repercussions, and there was never a dull moment. But I can say I'm very happy this is the end of Governor Quarg's arc. You
are very happy?
I'm happy with that this arc is ending and that we're moving on. And Randy, I disagree with what you said. I think this is far from a Star Wars storyline. And we'll get into that as we go into the issue. So I'm very eager to hear what your comments were.
Okay.
All right, with that, let's now move into the issue itself.
Okay, let's explore the story.
All right,
so excited.
On this opening splash page, we pick up where we left off, kind of like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Yeah, so Chewie is attacking Luke. He's swiping at him with everything that he has, and R2 and 3PO are cowering in the back. But now, Randy, explain to us artistically what we're looking at here.
Well, we have Luke dodging Chewbacca, and the swing of Chewbacca is taking up the full mid part of the page, which is kind of cool because it's actually the start of the swing. You can see the swish that they drew in there starts where the title is and brings you down and across the page over to where C-3PO and R2-D2 are. So it's really one of the more well-designed splash pages, I think, to help guide the reader to not only the dialogue, but what happens, like basically how to read the dialogue, kind of. Because in the cells, you get like, okay, there's cell 1, then cell 2, cell 3. And but when one big splash page with a lot of things going on, you kind of need direction of what to read first and where. So Chewbacca's swoosh and trying to, looks like, simply scratch Luke is actually a good vehicle for guiding us on what to pay attention in the storyline.
Yeah, I love the point that you just made, and I didn't even notice this either, how the white swish of Chewbacca's arm comes from the title, The Sound of Armageddon. That's very poetic. Now, did you guys see the foreshadowing to The Force Awakens in this panel right here? When, as 3PO says, "It's hopeless, R2. Nothing any of us says is reaching Chewbacca. He's convinced Master Luke played a part in Han Solo's death." Now, what kind of Force Awakens foreshadowing do we see here?
That it's hopeless?
No.
Well, Han Solo's death, I suppose. And that Luke played a part?
Luke had trained Kylo Ren. Something went wrong, which led to Ben turning to the dark side, turning to Kylo Ren, and eventually killing Han Solo.
Yes, sweetie, this is all a lead up to that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like in the intro, I was mentioning that there are parallels and foreshadowing, and if you know where to look, I think it's interesting. Okay. Of course, Rian Johnson or J.J. Abrams or Lawrence Kasdan didn't look at this and go, "Whoa, my goodness! Now I know where to take this film."
Right.
But retroactively, they can look back and go, "Ooh, that's a fun parallel." In 40 years, kids, this is all going to mean something.
All I want is when
Spoiler alert, kids!
Yeah. Also on this splash page, we do have a little parable here, or a little joke.
Yeah, the tangential joke.
Yes, what was this doing here? And why was it here? So we have a little round bubble, which you don't see round. You always see the square bubbles or like the, what is that called? The jagged lines.
Jaggy of someone's yelling in a bubble. So
in this little round bubble, no one is saying it. It's just, here you go. What do you call someone who fights an enraged Wookiee bare-handed?
1, 2, 3, dead.
Old cantina joke.
What is that doing there?
I know.
And no one's saying it. It's just one of these. It should be called.
It's just there.
Not old cantina joke, but tangential cantina joke.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's just
Well,
funny, though.
I would have a possible explanation for
Oh.
it. Possibly that probably wasn't there originally, and when they looked at the page, it's like there's just a really empty space right there. We need to put something there.
Oh, interesting.
Probably at the last minute, and they just put it there. That would be my guess.
All I want is when we're walking around Star Wars Land to have these little tangential pop-ups coming. Oh,
Sure.
here's a joke over here. Oh, we're in the cantina. Here's a cantina joke.
All right.
Here. Okay.
All right, now, moving right along, and I'm loving this next splash page, and Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, we've never seen a two-page splash page that on each page only takes up a half of a page.
Right.
Not that I can remember. This very ahead of its time.
Yeah, so you know what? Explain to us what's happening in this two-page splash page.
Well, we got the dragons fighting the General Quarg group. They're the I forget what they're called. The
Sea
Space
dragons?
Wreckers.
Space Wreckers. That's right. I want to say
Oh.
Crushers. Space Wreckers. They should have voted on a better name. But the Space Wreckers versus the dragons, and they're in full on battle, like on the battle above Endor and the Death Star 2. And it's just a lot of action going on, and there's mayhem going on everywhere that you look, with the big huge ship island in the background, and lots going on here.
Yeah, and there's 5 dragons.
Oh, no, there's 6.
Oh, 6.
Little one right there.
I didn't see that one peeking out from behind the Hydra skimmer.
I know.
Oh,
He's a
nice.
little baby one.
Yeah, and they are just going rampage. They're going rampage on all these ships, and we'll see later on why they're on such a rampage. Mm-hmm. And in the bottom, it does say, "This may very well be their final battle." Ooh, I like that. That's like a cliffhanger right
Some
there.
good foreshadowing.
Now, in the main city ship, Quarg's soldier is assessing the battle and suggests they move out before they are destroyed. Quarg, well, being very short-sighted, kind of like Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars.
Evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances.
Quarg, he slugs the soldier and says, "You mean flea? You cowardly sea scud? You have to shut down the sonic jammer to do it."
Yeah, so basically if they were to move the ship, they have to shut down the sonic jammer, which is currently holding the Star Destroyer in space.
Right, so all their power is being used to pull down Crimson Jack's hijacked Star Destroyer.
Right.
And as we know, that's what they do. They pull ships from orbit and they salvage the metal.
That's why they're called space wreckers.
Right. So they're pulling down the King's Ransom, this giant Star Destroyer. But if they were to move the main city ship, then they have to let go of the Star Destroyer. It's like, the push and pull. What do you do?
And his men, so Governor Quarg's men are like, well, we got to stop the sonic jammer because we got to save ourselves. So you know what Governor Quarg is reminding me of here?
What's that?
He's reminding me of Captain Ahab,
Oh.
who tried to, get the whale at all costs to his men and ends up, not getting the whale, but just forsaking his ship and his crew to do it. So that's kind of what Governor Quarg is doing here.
Yeah, he's...
Dang it! You just spoiled the whole book for me.
Statute of limitations, come on. I've never even read Moby Dick, and I know that.
Now, I love Quarg's line here, and Randy, you had a good take on Quarg's voice last time, so read that line there for me.
Move, you mean flea, you cowardly sea scud.
Nice.
That's
And
awesome.
we'd have to shut down this sonic jammer to do it when it's locked in on bigger spacecraft we've ever netted.
Oh, I think Randy's just talked himself into a cosplay costume.
Oh.
Nice. Now, Quarg then orders his men to try harder or hang.
Wow.
So, now, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. Quarg, being this little, 5'4", pudgy G.I. Joe wannabe, now, he doesn't pose much of a physical threat. All the crew would have to do is say, no, we're good, and there's nothing he could do about it. Now, why do you think Quarg poses such a threat to his crew?
Well, I mean, if you look at all the mob bosses in the world, and gangsters and stuff, a lot of them are not very, big, huge guys. They usually have big, huge guys watching their back. And that's basically what it is they have the respect and the fear from people that are actually more physically powerful than they are, but they take care of those people very, very well, so that they'll do that. So he's kind of like the brains and the confidence behind the whole thing that people look up to. So most likely, most of his crew are probably very insecure, very self-loathing, and they have an inferiority complex, which he prides upon.
I would say he definitely leads through fear.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because like he showed in issues past, if you let him down, he's gonna hang you.
Right.
Just to let everyone else know that, hey, you mess up, that's gonna be you next.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I like that. Now, meanwhile, in the Star Destroyer above, Crimson Jack's...
Wait.
What?
Gotta let Randy say that.
Oh, okay.
Meanwhile,
Thank you.
In the Star Destroyer above, Crimson Jack's engineer is explaining what is going on with the sonic jammer and goes into a little exposition of the background of these space wreckers who pull the ships down from orbit, and they're used for salvage. That is, until the Old Republic put them on the run. Mm-hmm. Now, Jack replies with, "I don't want a history lesson." But it would be funny if the engineer said, I wasn't talking to you, I was catching the readers up on some backstory.
That would have been awesome. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Jack, this is a little exposition because, most of our audience are 8 or 48. Now, Jack realizes this is all because of Han Solo, and there is no rebellion treasure below that Han had promised. Jack asks his first mate, Jolie, about any escape pods, and she informs him that they have been sabotaged, and she blames herself since Leia had been filling her head with things other than pirating.
With thoughts about things other than pirating.
Now,
Whoa!
Now, Sarah, what does the narration box say? What does the narration box say?
Oh, well, okay, so I first read this that said, I wouldn't have been caught off guard, except that princess kept filling my head with thoughts about things other than pirating. And right there, I stopped. I was like, whoa, I started writing. Like, wait, Jolie is, plays for the same team. Right there.
Yeah.
But then I read the narration box, which says, things such as being attracted to a man for the first time, a man like Han Solo.
All right, Randy, read into that.
Well, I read it as confirming that she does play for the same team, and this is the first that Han Solo is such a manly man.
Right.
That's the first time. That's important. The first time
that she's been attracted to any man, apparently.
And to go any further with that, we'll get banned in India. So I better not.
And Brazil, and Europe, and Asia.
Yeah.
Well, not Europe. They don't care.
No, they was like, hey,
hey, they're the ones who taught us, man.
Yeah, we'll download in droves because of that. All right,
Wow.
So we're on the same page with Jolie and her.
It's very interesting.
Satisfaction needs. All right, now let's go ahead.
So basically, she likes Coke and Sprite.
Okay.
And Pepsi.
Dr. Pepper? No?
Mr. Pibb.
Sometimes root beer.
And some Tab. All right, now with that, we're going to cut away to Han Solo, who's underwater and on the back of a sea dragon. But more importantly, Han Solo is alive.
Yay.
But now, where is he being taken to?
All right, inside the crashed Falcon, we see that Leia is the only one aboard and is ready for a fight as the Hydra skimmers are towing the Falcon back to the main city ship. So Leia is ready to make them pay for what they've done to Han and Chewie.
All right, Leia. That's the Princess Leia that we know from the Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't just sit back and play the damsel in distress. You know what? There's a fight. I'm ready. Bring it on. Now, on the city ship, Quarg and his commander are arguing. The commander is wondering why they are wasting so much time and power trying to pull the destroyer down from space when another ship, being the Millennium Falcon, has just fallen into their laps. And Quarg sees this as personal since he wanted to do something his father never could, which is to make this water world all his, but first he must destroy the Dragon Lords using the metal from the ships as weapons. So
so Quarg needs to destroy the Dragon Lords with the metal from the ships?
From not just the Millennium Falcon, but the destroyer as well. So this is not just something he wants for power. This is all for personal reasons. He wants to do something his father never could, which is to make the whole world his and not play Sharesy-Daresy with the
Right.
Dragon Lords.
All right, so I have a question about this. So let's say Quarg succeeds in getting that Star Destroyer down. Where's he going to put it?
In the water.
But then all the metal would be rusted and messed up, wouldn't
Well,
it?
that's when the Hydro Skimmers would go over and take it all apart.
Yeah, but wouldn't it like I don't know if it would float.
Oh, you know what? In the notes there that you can't see, it says the water is not salt water.
Oh. Where are those notes that I can't see?
It's, you know what? I called up Archie Goodwin, and he said, yeah, it's there. Just Sarah can't see it.
Okay.
Oh, well, here's a question for readers to maybe research, or unless you know. We went to another planet that had a majority of water on its surface like we do. Is it because of all the minerals that are on the Earth? Does that naturally make the ocean salty? Or is that...
That's a good question.
So if it does, and I'm trying to bring this back related to this, if it does, then yes, this would be saltwater, Richard. I'm sorry. But if it's unique to our planet that it's salt, then, Richard, you would be right. It could be freshwater.
But when I was talking to Archie Goodwin a
No.
couple of minutes ago,
I don't think so.
He said, you know what, this is the Drexel system, so it's all clean and clear water.
I think we have some good points here, and I want to know.
I don't think so at all. This is clearly, you know what? What Archie says is gospel, okay?
You know what, Skywalkers? Tweet at us, at SkywalkingPod. We want to know.
Or it's possible they put a special undercoating like they do on cars, for the salt.
Yeah, I know about the rust.
So they put a special undercoating on cars in that area, right? So that you don't get the rust.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Why wouldn't they just put that on ships everywhere, just in case?
There's one way to settle this. Hold on, let me go ahead and lick the page. No, I don't taste any salt at all. Not at all. So I would say that I am right. You two are wrong. Let's please move on. Because at this point, Quarg, he now needs Luke and the droids to make this happen.
Yes, because Luke and the droids are good with the mechanical equipment.
Well, he needs more.
He's
The city ship needs more power. And since Quarg's not mechanically inclined, and he knows that Luke is...
Well, Luke, isn't he the master electrician now or something?
The master mechanic, because they hung the last guy.
Right.
So, you know what? This serves as a little bit of a cliffhanger. This is a good place to take a break. And, Randy, let's go ahead and cover one of the ads from 1978.
Yay!
This will be a commercial break, if you will.
Commercial break.
Now, we skimmed through a lot of these. There was like, what, maybe 10? And there was one that, Randy, that stuck out to you. So go ahead and take us through this.
Yeah, these are really hard. We had a hard time choosing one of the ads to go. Now, as all of you know, the only reason that comic books do exist are because of the advertisements that they sell. That's what pays for a lot of it. We pay the extra cost, of course, that's on the cover price. But a lot of it's covered by these advertisements. So one of the things that I loved about the old comics is the drawn comics, because the photographs didn't work in this type of print on newsprint, so they had to draw everything, or if there were photos, they just didn't look very good. So one of there's a few of them that are my favorite that show up all the time, and one of the semifinalists of what we're going to talk about was one of the muscle ads. It's of course a classic, and we'll talk about one of those another time. Another one is of course Sea Monkeys, and definitely going to talk about that when that appears in one of these comics. But today, one of my favorites, of course, is the special comic books that Marvel and DC used to put out for their respective comics for Hostess snack cakes. And I love these because you don't find these advertisements, these kind of advertisements, in any other place except for comic books. And I loved these as kids because number one, the art is actually pretty good on these. Well, it
looks like a comic book itself.
Yeah,
and it is a full page ad too, with 5 panels.
Yeah, it is, and the stories are completely ludicrous. They are so ridiculous, but it's funny. But the art's so good, and of course, this one has Captain America, and at the very top, you'll note it says advertisement very clearly, and that's because if you were actually reading a Captain America comic book, you'd be reading along and go, what the heck?
Wait a minute, since when does Captain America take a snack break to enjoy a Hostess Twinkie?
So in this
oh my God.
In this episode, I think we can call this an episode, Julius Caesar somehow and a bunch of Romans show up in Central Park. or what looks to be like Central Park. And Nick Fury is telling Captain America, that these guys are from another place, another time. And Captain America says, a time warp, I expect. Like this happens all the time. The perfect explanation. So Captain America is sent. He goes out to Central Park to meet up with the Romans and Caesar, who find picnic baskets all over the place that have hostess snack cakes in them. And the Romans start eating them and saying how great they are. And Captain America looks very stern and says they're good, but they're the only goodies you're going to get here. And mind you, nothing really bad has happened except for Captain America's ready to fight. So the next final panel, he tells him that S.H.I.E.L.D. has gotten the space coordinates correct, and your time warp, you're going to go back. And Caesar says, we ask only for enough delicious Hostess Twinkie cakes to enjoy on our way.
Now, you said this was ludicrous. I don't see anything ludicrous about this.
Now, as we were talking about this, one last thing. Rich and I were going back and forth talking about which pieces. And now I'm leading into what you were going to say. What do you see? You didn't really care for these as a kid.
No, because I didn't understand them. Because I'm thinking, wait, when does Captain America eat Twinkies? when does SpiderMan ever stop for a ding dong?
Is that what were they for, like Twinkies and Hostess?
Yeah, all the Hostess
stuff?
snacks. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So one is like you were mentioning Spider-Man. Spider-Man stops a robbery by luring the bandits with Hostess fruit pies, and Iron Man or Human Torch maybe passes out cupcakes to a bunch of scrolls invading the Earth to stop them from taking over with, like you said, ding dongs and
and marshmallows.
But see, I
cupcakes.
noted that if you look closely, I don't actually recall the superheroes actually ever eating the snack cakes. They give them out like they're going out of style, but they never eat them.
Now, if you have to wear spandex,
exactly.
Randy, like I do, let's not take that any further. You'll notice you cannot have anything with more than 5 calories in it.
Right. To keep that superhero physique, they will not be eating Twinkies.
That is true. So, Sarah, what do you think about these?
So this is the first time I'm seeing this, and that is hilarious. What I want to know is, did they have these in the Star Wars comics, and was there Star Wars characters ever involved?
Well, this was in the Star Wars comic.
Okay. So it wasn't, like, I could see really messing with a kid's head if this is a Captain America comic, and all of a sudden you're seeing Captain America and the Time Warp, a little mini comic within the comic, where he's giving out Twinkies to Julius Caesar in Central Park.
Mm-hmm. And as Randy pointed out, it does say advertisement splashed across the top, just so you don't go, wait a minute, he was just fighting Red Skeleton.
Right. But Richard, just think of you as a kid.
Oh, I'm not going to say that.
Would you read all the words?
No.
Because, I mean, you don't read all the words now for things, so... So I think this is hilarious, but I also think it's a good marketing idea, just in terms of looking at as marketing, because, like, let's say, Richard and I, we want to promote classic Marvel Star Wars comics. Well, one of the best places to do that is in another podcast, because here's a podcast listener already who might want to then now add your podcast to their podcast listening. You've already gotten through the first hurdle of someone who likes to listen to podcasts. So here they're advertising something with a comic to someone who already likes comics and who is already familiar with reading comics. Because, I mean, to me as a kid, I don't ever read comics, so I would look at this and be like, I would just gloss over it, like all the comics.
Well, plus they're promoting their next spinoff series, Captain America versus Twinkie the Kid.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think they made a comic of that, actually.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so for me as a kid, this just seemed like blatant advertising. Even though I probably didn't think of it in those terms, I just knew that it just seemed out of the realm of continuity, so I just skimmed way over these.
You're a very stickler for continuity.
Oh yeah, so I think I didn't eat Twinkies because of this.
Probably.
Well, see, when I was a kid, I would actually reach for a Mad magazine before I'd reach for a comic book. So that's probably why I love these so much, because they're just so silly.
All right.
Wow.
So you know what? I think this is fun. So for every episode of Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, we'll get into another ad until we reach the Sea Monkeys, which I know Randy is just just biting to get.
And
Oh, like you're
He's
not.
chomping at the bit to get to those sea monkeys.
that's right. All right, and now back to our originally scheduled program.
All right, now, Luke and the droids still have their hands full trying to dodge the rampaging Chewbacca, who still thinks Luke is responsible for Han's death. Through a gag we saw a lot in the cartoon strips of the 70s and 80s, 3PO gets down on his hands and knees behind Chewbacca, causing him to trip and fall, and hilarity ensues.
It's not quite as funny when it's in a comic, though.
It's not so funny when it's 3PO, who you know can't get
Get on his
down
hands
or
and
bend
knees.
or do anything like he does in the comics.
Yep.
Now, once the Wookiee is down, R2 sprays him with something that looks like it gives him rabies as he foams at the mouth. Well, just then a crew member comes in for Luke and the droids. Quarg, he needs Luke to hook up the Falcon's engines to a sonic jammer so they'll have enough power to bring down the hijacked Star Destroyer.
Right.
Luke responds to Quarg by saying, "Why, you fat-faced excuse for a leader? My friends were on that ship." Wow. That's some pretty harsh language there, Luke.
That is Luke. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't expect that coming from Luke Skywalker.
But then Quarg surprises Luke with his new prisoner, Princess Leia.
Now, I really like Quarg's response. Now, shall I make the obvious threats, or will you begin work at once? He just cuts to the chase.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
There's a lot of cases in comic books where they should talk like him.
Yeah.
Let's just cut to the chase. Because I noted that too, Richard. I mean, that was great writing.
We could show you within 3 or 4 panels, or we could just say it and cut to the chase and let's move on. Now, I love this next part. Quarg knocks away a baby dragon with his boot, who then jumps into the water. The baby dragon jumps into the water and attaches itself to a large sea dragon.
It's a lizard.
Lizard, okay. And it attaches itself to a large sea dragon, which brings it to the underwater caverns where Han Solo has been.
Right.
We are then told by a dragon lord who looks amazingly like Don Juan Quixote's brother. Now, Don Juan Quixote, for those people just joining us, he was Don Juan Quixote. Quixote. He was part of Han's group in the very first story after the novelization.
Wasn't it
After
8
the
Against
adaptation.
the World? 8 Against the World?
Yes. You had a long-haired King Arthur-looking Jedi named Don Juan. Well, this Dragon Lord looks just like him.
Except he's wearing a yellow bodysuit.
Yes, instead of armored.
Yes.
Now, the baby dragon, Lizard, has been spying on Quarg and has heard everything he has said and is now reporting back.
Yeah, and
So-
it seems like there's a bunch of the little lizards, that's been running around the ships spying, basically, because the people just thought these lizards weren't intelligent, but they actually are,
Yeah,
because they're baby dragons.
and we saw them everywhere on covers and in the issues, and we just thought they were just little scurrying, like little mice. But no, these things, they were very smart, and they can take what they hear, go back to the underwater caverns, and they're put under this device that can translate their language.
Right.
Now the Dragon Lords know Quarg's plan and how he will use the Millennium Falcon.
Right. So Don Juan Quixote, the Dragon Lord, he fills them in on some bad news because Quarg's sonic jammers, sound waves, that's what's driving the dragons mad, and that's why the dragons are like attacking everything at the beginning of this issue. So each time the sonic jammer is used, it brings the dragons closer to death. And just then, the poor little baby dragon falls over and dies. Oh.
I don't like that.
No. So now before any of the other dragons die, the Dragon Lords must throw everything they can at Quarg and his city ship. It is do or die. So now all these plots are intertwined. I really love the writing on this episode. It's so great.
Yeah. Now, cut to a 2/3 splash page. Boy, they love their splash pages in this issue of the dragons crashing through Quarg's ship. Now, Randy, explain this panel here.
A lot of excitement and destruction and mayhem. And I love how it actually is the first time. Well, I guess it's not the first time, but I guess just to me, it's the first time it really shows you the scale of these dragons, because you have more than just the little guy writing it, which I guess gives you some scale. But when it's, these dragons are tearing apart this ship that we're know is really big, and they're really huge, like Godzilla size, practically. I like this one. It's cool.
Now, if you look at the panel before this, you see a Dragon Lord on the back of this Red Sea Dragon. Then we cut to that Red Sea Dragon again, and he's like 5 times the size.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It could be a different Dragon Lord, a different a sea beast, a dragon, but I think it's since each panel feeds into the next, it's supposed to be the same one. But it's like the Hulk. Suddenly it just grows 5 times its size.
Well, also on this splash panel, this is page 253 if you're reading the omnibus, there's another little round parable bubble. That's what I'm going to call them, little parable bubbles.
Okay.
Well, this one says, sea dragons, ship dwellers, serpent riders, space wreckers, all feel its touch. All pay the price. And they're talking about destruction, the touch of destruction. And I just think that's so poetic. And I'm wondering if this issue, is this written by someone different than previous?
Archie Goodwin, my friend.
Still the same? Well, he was on point for this episode because there's some good writing here.
Yeah, I've got to point out that Archie Goodwin died some years ago. But he's still my good friend, and we still communicate. You don't need to know anything more than that.
Okay.
All right, now, Quarg...
Ouija.
Randy!
Do you get the official Star Wars Ouija board?
That was my special cell phone connection to the dead, the Ouija board. All right, now, Quarg threatens that if Luke doesn't hurry up with harnessing the Falcon's engines, he's going to begin hurting Leia. And then Luke says to 3PO with a BB-8 thumbs up, hey, His Honor is fussing worse than a Tusken Raider with a collapsed moisture collector.
His honor meaning Quarg, right?
Meaning Quarg, yeah.
Okay.
It's very, very sarcastic.
All right.
Now, apparently, Luke has a plan which should work should nothing unforeseen happens. Hey, guess what happens?
Something unforeseen? Is it that unspoken thing?
Yep, and a sea dragon dives right into the Falcon.
Oh, man.
Knocking it over.
Just when you're having a good day.
Yeah. Now, the ship begins to flood, and Luke moves to get to the hatch when a man in a purple scuba suit enters the ship. Who is it?
It's Han! Yay! Who doesn't look like Han at all, I might add.
No, yeah, Randy.
What is up with this? I'm sorry.
How would you describe Han's outfit here?
Oh, it's well, he looks kind of like Torpedo from G.I. Joe. If you guys remember that, the Navy SEAL, but purple. And
wow,
there really isn't any way to tell that it's Han Solo, except for that Luke says it's Han Solo.
Seriously, like look at his face when he takes off his mask. He's got this giant jaw and this very straight nose and huge high cheekbones. It's like, for one thing, Han does not have a straight nose. Part of his charm is that it's like a little off kilter there.
But look in this panel here. He's got that crooked smile. Like that's more of a smirk, but it's crooked.
Yeah, but
so you know that's Han.
There's nothing else Han about. No, meh. Not at all.
Okay,
sorry. And then look at Luke in this bottom panel, the bottom middle panel in 254. Where's his eyeballs?
Well, he's shocked to see him alive. But when Han says that Luke has got to stop whatever those crazy space wreckers are having him do, Luke yells, "No!" and sucker punches Han in the face.
I know. What is going on?
I'm not sure. How does Han know what Luke is doing?
Actually, Luke says no, but then he says, I'm not going to let you waltz in and spoil things now.
Right.
It's very un-Luke-like.
But Luke is there to harness the Falcon's engines for Quarg.
Right.
But I'm not sure how Han knows this.
Han wants to stop what Luke's doing because he knows that he's being coerced into doing it. But Luke has made alternate plans beyond what the space wreckers want him to do.
But I'm still not sure how Han
didn't know that, but I don't know why Luke could have just said, oh, by the way, Han, I've got some alternate plans here that requires me to follow through with what the space wreckers are having me do.
And then Han says, this goes beyond saving the Falcon. You've just given that guy Quarg something almost as deadly as the Death Star.
Dun, dun, dun.
So wait a minute, he's comparing the sonic jammer to the Death Star?
Well, because it'll kill all the poor dragons, I guess.
As opposed to killing a whole planet like Alderaan?
I don't know. Maybe there's dragons all over the planet that are being affected. But yes, you're right. Okay.
That's all I wanted to hear. I get to hear it like once every month.
That's very true.
Now, Luke gets the Falcon's engines hooked up to the sonic jammer, and the sound of Armageddon is heard.
Payoff.
And with that, sea dragons start dying off from the sonic waves.
Oh, no.
Well, I know. Now, Quarg takes Leia as a prisoner to the jammer, but Leia attempts an escape and double fist punches Quarg right in the stomach and yells,
Make the trip alone, Pudgy. I'm tired of being everyone's pawn.
I sure hope Quarg doesn't have body issues. Because if he didn't before, he does now.
Yeah, no kidding.
And she takes off, and Quarg yells, After her! I want her alive for hanging, if possible.
All right, no, Randy, you need to say Quarg's line.
Oh.
After her. I want her alive for hanging if possible. But I want her.
All right, now why does he have to add the if possible? I want her alive for hanging if possible.
Well, I think that he'll take her dead,
Oh.
but
Okay.
if possible, he wants her alive.
When
He
I
just
fir-
said it kind of wrong.
When I first read this, I thought he was saying, he's being kind of wishy-washy. You know what? if possible, I'd like to hang her. If it's possible, can you bring her back? Don't go out of your way, Space Wreckers. Well, whatever
Right.
happens, happens. But now I see your line reading.
Yes.
Thank you, Randy. Just then, the mighty Chewbacca punches a hole through the wall with a
Brakash!
great sound effect and starts throwing around the Space Wreckers. However, Quarg gets away and pursues Leia.
Uh-oh. Randy?
Meanwhile,
Back on the Falcon, Luke and Han are on the same page now because Luke actually told his friend that the gun turrets are all charged and have to blast the sonic jammer, which is holding the ship.
Communication is everything, kids.
It really is. But there is a new problem since the jammer's beaming apparatus goes up to the mainsail on the city ship. And who's on that mainsail?
Princess Leia.
That's right.
Exactly where she is.
She's messing things up.
And I love this panel right here. This has got to be one of my favorites.
Page 258 of the omnibus.
So, Randy, explain to us artistically why this panel works so well when Quarg has Leia backed up onto this yard arm.
I mean, it's fine. I'm more interested in let you tell me why you think what really does for you.
All right, for me, it's evoking Vader and Luke from The Empire Strikes Back. When Vader has got Luke backed up onto the gantry on Cloud City, it's calling back to that. But I think it's because it's daylight. We're seeing everything very brightly lit, and Leia is she's holding on to the rope ladder, and she's all
Her
like in an
skirts.
action pose.
Yes.
Quarg has got his big Doctor Strange cape flowing in the breeze, and he's all hunched over in a classic Han Solo pose.
So there's lots of movement, and it's a long shot, Richard. It's a long shot.
I love me some long shots.
Yes, you do. And I think because it's that standoff, and once again, in Star Wars, you have standoffs over narrow things.
With no handrails.
With no handrails, yes.
And you got all that moss hanging over the yard arm. I just really love this panel.
Yeah, I think it works better because the yard arm is at a canted angle.
Yeah.
If it were just straight horizontal across, it wouldn't have such movement to it.
Okay, I
So
can
I
see
think
that.
that's what really helps build up the suspense there and the dramatics of this particular panel.
Okay. Randy, do you see anything in particular about this? Does this call out to you?
I think it's cool. It's good storytelling. It's got a walking the plank kind of feel to it, since they are in the pirate world here.
Uh-huh.
And but a little side thing that I am actually liking about it is there's a tradition to get away from Star Wars just a second to show my point. There's a tradition with Batman comics where the artists go crazy with the cape and have it huge and doing all these rippling things that wouldn't possibly be capable of being that way in real life. They're doing some of that same thing with Princess Leia's dress. And I like it design-wise. I mean, it looks really cool. So that one shot of her with the flames under her feet and her dress flowing like that, there's no way she could walk in a dress like that, or much less run around and be in action and stuff like that. But it looks really cool. So that I would say I like that.
And there's no way her boobs could be that buoyant either. But I digress.
No.
Oh, there goes India. Thank you.
Oh, I just think that's funny.
Yeah, and between
She's like Xena before there was a Xena.
she and Luke, who are both wearing stark white through the whole arc, their clothes remain stark white. Never gets dirty.
Even though she's walking on a moss yardarm.
Right. And now here, Quarg takes a shot at Leia, shaking her off balance. But before Quarg can take another shot, Luke Skywalker swings down off the mainsail, knocking Quarg overboard.
Woohoo!
Now, what's missing, Randy, in that panel where Luke hits Quarg, knocking him overboard?
What's missing from it?
There's something.
A sound effect.
There you go. For the first time, when something really calls out for a sound effect, there's no sound effect there. So, Randy, fill us in. What are you hearing there? Are you hearing a forp, a prakash? What are you hearing?
Bong.
Oh, okay.
Boy up, poop.
Now, my question is Quarg dead? Did Luke Skywalker just kill Quarg?
We didn't see his death, and usually, what is it in comics and in superhero movies? If you don't see them die, they're not dead.
And Randy, why do you suppose they left that ambiguous about Quark's fate?
Because they didn't have enough panels.
No, I think just like Sarah was saying, in comic books, until you see them actually dead, and even then, you can't assume that they're dead. But it just leaves the door open to be able to bring those characters back later.
That's true.
I think because they don't want 8-year-olds seeing that Luke Skywalker just knocked this guy off a 3-story ship to his death, and
even though he killed millions of people on the Death Star.
But you don't see their faces like this. You clearly see Quark's face, and for the first time, I feel sorry for this fat-faced, pudgy villain. So I think that's why we don't see what's going on there. Even though in the next panel, we do see a splash below as Leia reaches up and grabs Luke as he's swinging back. We do see a splash in the background. So
he did fall in the water then.
Right. But we don't know of his fate just yet, but I think that's intentional.
Okay.
All right, so Leia grabs onto Luke, and they swing away just before the Millennium Falcon fires and destroys the main sail and the sonic jammer. So all's well that ends well, but this is like seconds after Luke and Leia had just swung away.
Right.
So that blast radius must be really small if they didn't get cooked.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. So, you know what? All's well that ends well. The sonic jammer has been destroyed, and the space wreckers, whoever is left, can never pull down another ship again. But you know what that also means? That Crimson Jack got away.
That's right.
Oh, are we going to see him in a future issue?
I think so. And his outfit and his legs. All right, so now there's an epilogue here. The Dragon Lords thank Han and the gang for saving them and the Sea Dragons. And Luke is just glad he and Chewie are back on good terms and that he's not trying to pull his arms out of his socket, and that all of them are all together again. So, like we saw on the cover of this issue, all our heroes are together.
They're all happy.
Yes. However, something else has gotten Han's attention. He knows all his battles are not over, because hanging right above them in outer space is Crimson Jack, who is surely not happy Han had deceived him this whole time, only to catch a free ride to the Drexel system.
We'll just have to wait to see how this all plays out in the next issue, Showdown. Or something like that. All right, now that's the end of this issue, The Sound of Armageddon.
Yes.
So now that we've gone through it, Randy, has your overall thoughts changed on this issue since we first started?
No, I really liked this issue, and like I was saying before, it shows a lot of action, and it has a bunch of different layers, different stories that are unfolding and coming together. And I still believe that it's not directly Star Wars-ish, but it's as close as I feel like we've gotten in any of the comics to feeling like a story that would have been something that they would have, an adventure that the heroes would have had.
Okay. Sarah, what are your overall thoughts now that we've gone through it all?
They're definitely the same. I really liked this issue, and I'm glad it was so exciting to read and to follow the story. And now I'm just looking forward to the next issue. So my thoughts did not change. I really like it.
Well, that's always a good thing when you can't wait for the next issue to come out.
Yeah. What about you, Richard?
I repeat what I said earlier. It's not a very Star Warsian story. Too many moments and elements that don't fit into this galaxy. And I'm glad that we are now seeing Quarg's story end. Or maybe we haven't, since he may pop up in another issue, but I don't think so. Overall, it was adventurous, and it made use of all the characters. They all had an adventure once again.
Now, do you two remember reading this particular story as kids? Or seeing the pictures?
Randy?
The pictures call memories.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't really start reading them until years later.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, too, I didn't start reading them until 84.
Okay.
Just when it was about to end its run. As a kid, I just liked looking at the pictures. I wanted to see where things were going to go next. And since I wasn't a big G.I. Joe fan, and I felt like Quarg looked too much like a G.I. Joe character, I wasn't too invested in the story. But I did like looking at the pictures, like Luke and Leia swinging on the rope from the mainsail, and things that harkened back to Star Wars. I really liked those. So I remember seeing the cover, and I recall some of these images, but I don't recall reading the story back then. But I do recall why Captain America was eating a Twinkies, and I didn't like it. All right, now let's get into our favorites. Sarah, what is your favorite line of dialogue from this issue?
So this one was hard for me. I didn't have one that really stood out. So I'm actually going to go with Jolie's line, "I wouldn't have been caught off guard, except that princess kept filling my head with thoughts about things other than pirating." Because it just opens a whole can of worms. So that's my favorite line. And yeah, I believe in the last episode, the last issue, Jolie was my favorite line too. So I just like her lines.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
We have a discussion for later on. So, Randy, what was your favorite line of dialogue?
Well, Sarah stole mine.
Oh.
And I would include in that just the dialogue box at the bottom, the things such as being attracted to a man for the first time. I thought that was particularly like, okay, you answered a lot of discussions there, and I don't know what that actually has to do with the story,
Right.
but thank you. So I will take my second, which is not necessarily exciting, but just and we discussed this, was just Quarg's dialogue of, "Now shall I make the obvious threats, or will you work at once?" It's just like, thank you, let's just move on. You know, it's like we don't need Wolverine explaining about his adamantium claws a million times in every single magazine. Every time he pops, like, we know what they are. We get it. You know, so thank you, Quarg, for just cutting to the chase, like you're saying, Richard. So that I would say, as a utility, that is my favorite line.
I think that is the most well-written line of this issue, but my favorite line has to go to, and Randy, help me out here, "You mean flea, you cowardly sea scud." Take it away.
I'm trying to find the line in here.
You mean...
Let me I know, but I can find it, and I'll be able to say it better if I can read it. Oh, there it is.
Move, you mean flea, you cowardly sea scud.
You just don't get better than that.
That's awesome. Wow.
All right, how about now, favorite panel? Sarah?
Ooh, okay. So, I had a couple contenders, and I'm not going to go with the obvious splash pages. I'm actually going to go with a panel that kind of reminded me of my childhood, because I always loved... We got a pool when I was like 7. I came home from school one day, and my parents were like, "We have a pool. Go play." And I was all excited because I just seen The Little Mermaid, and all I wanted to do was be a mermaid and swim in the water. Which, side tangent, I was just at TJ Maxx the other day. They have mermaid tails for kids. Like, that you can strap to your 2 feet.
We have a pool. Did you get one?
And, like, pretend to be a mermaid. I'm like, where was this when I was 8? Okay. Anyway, so this panel... Yes. This panel on page 247, the top right, we have a sea creature, a sea dragon, and it's swimming in the water with the Don Quixote Dragon Lord and Han strapped to the back of the sea creature. And it's just a small panel, but I love here the sea creature is in the water, and it just looks like kind of a mermaid there. Like the motion of it is very oceany. I don't know what to say. Like it's swimming.
Oceany sounds very
Sure,
specific.
oceany, and then I love the colors. So it's got the teals and the purples and this nice light blue, and it's just very. It's a calming panel to me.
Okay.
I like it a lot.
Okay. Randy?
Well, nice choice, Sarah. I went ahead and did go with the obvious, and I love the second basically splash page with all the dragons attacking the ships and stuff. And it's really well drawn. I love the action. The two of these artists together have a real knack for getting water. Water's not easy to illustrate, especially if it's swishing and moving around, and they do a really good job, and the dragons moving around, and I like how the ship in the background is just basically silhouetted, which gives it a lot of space, between the foreground and the background. So really well done. I like that one a lot.
Nice.
All right. I'm going to go with a panel that we just discussed moments ago with Quarg backing Leia to the end of that yard arm.
Okay.
I love the composition of that. I love how it calls back to The Empire Strikes Back. And I love just the way everything is placed, especially the water in the background. So you see that there's some peril down below.
Okay.
I
Nice.
really love that panel.
Awesome.
All right. Now let's move on to the most non-Star Wars moment or line of dialogue in this issue. Randy?
Well, I thought what was the most, and as I was discussing, there wasn't much in here that was like non-Star Wars-ish, but I thought the one that was Luke slugging Han Solo. It was out of character, number one. But it's like he didn't really need to slug him. He could have just said, "No, you can't do that." It's like, no, I feel like hitting you. So
Whack!
you know what? It's like there wasn't, and Han Solo wasn't like moving to do anything where you had to stop him. So I thought that was not only non-Star Wars out of Luke's character, but it was just kind of like not really. It was non.
It was
Not
not the
necessary.
Jedi way.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't anybody would do it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like if you were going to pick up the wrong cup of soda and you punch me in the face because it was yours, not mine. No, don't do
I was
that.
going to say,
Whack.
I'm in the kitchen making dinner, and Richard comes in. What can I do? And I'm like, you can slice the tomatoes, and you pick up a peach, and I'm like... I'm like, no, whack. What are you
could have
thinking?
just said that was a peach.
Takes a rolling pin and chases me around like a 1930s sitcom.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean. With the rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overreacting
I know.
just a hair.
Well, Randy, you and I are on the same wavelength today because that was exactly, you took my on Star Wars moment. And, Luke's line there too is, I'm not going to let you waltz in and spoil things now. Since when is waltzing a part of the Star Wars universe too?
Well,
That's a good
apparently
point.
no.
That's a good point.
You know what? Before this recording, I talked to Pablo Hidalgo. He said, yep, people do waltz in the Star Wars universe.
When are you talking to all these people? Whack!
Ow! I waltz into this recording, and look what happens when I... Ow! Oh my goodness, things are flying everywhere. All right. Where?
Pablo's going to come run in, smack you in the face, and so, no, I said tango.
Don't you know a salsa when you see one?
No hoojips.
All right, so you guys are both on the same page
Yes.
with Luke hitting Han.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to go with the one we also just spoke about moments ago, and that's Luke knocking Quarg to his supposed death. I could have seen more of a battle where it was do or die for Luke. If Quarg had raised his blaster in the beginning, you had an insert panel of his trigger finger pulling the trigger, and Luke couldn't do anything else. Then, okay, maybe then. Luke, you have permission now to knock Quarg off the ship.
Right.
So
All right.
just don't see Luke doing that. So with that, I think we should wrap things up. However, we have something to ask of the listeners to Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics.
Yes, because, we are all part of the Hoojib
Hoojib fan club.
Yes, Hoojib fan club.
And before our time is up on this earth, we are going to make Hoojibs canon.
Hashtag make Hoojibs canon.
So we're asking all the listeners out there to please tweet out to Bob Roth.
Well, okay, so tweet out to the Lego Freemaker Adventures, because they have the best chance of making Hoojibs canon, and they know about Hoojibs. We recently interviewed them, and we will be posting that interview on Skywalking Through Neverland in the weeks to come. And so Bob Roth and Bill Motz are the creators of the Lego Star Wars Freemaker Adventures, and they had a little tidbit to tell us about Hoojibs. So basically, you have to tweet to them, hashtag make Hoojibs canon, and they have funny names on Twitter. They are at Automatic Gravy and at Inevitably Bill on Twitter. So, fun names.
So, I value this. We will make Hoojibs, the little white furry bunnies that we're going to encounter in another 80 issues, into the actual Star Wars canon.
Yay.
We're gonna do this. Randy, you with us?
Sure.
Okay, good. Good. Who doesn't love a good Hoojib? All right.
They're especially good with like mango salsa.
No. Have you been talking
Really
to Adam
good
Bray?
stuff.
Oh, no.
No, come on, Randy.
Yeah.
Parsnips.
Stop it.
All right. Let's just wrap it up before we're
Oddly, they taste a lot like newsprint.
No, Dad! You know what? Okay, we just got booted out of Rhode Island, okay? It just made matters worse. All right.
Where it's legal to eat roadkill, by the way.
Wow. All right.
I think Randy makes things up more than I do.
Roll us
All
out,
right,
Richard.
So
Do you know that just real quick? I know this isn't Star Wars related, but just remind me when I moved to Kansas City for art school. I'm not even joking about this. They sent a notice around because they just passed a law that it was legal to eat roadkill.
Wow.
Why would it be illegal? And
who would?
I guess it's a good point, but why would somebody want to?
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow, that's gross.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I guess if you're in the middle of nowhere.
Good old Missouri.
Yeah. All right.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh, you know what? And
that's my connection with Hoojibs and stuff. So whatever.
And there goes North Dakota. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, where we just went through Star Wars number 14, The Sound of Armageddon. We'll see everyone back for issue number 15, Showdown. Will they stick with that title? Stay tuned and find out.
We'd like to thank Rob Dellinger for doing our opening theme for this show. And if you want the conversation to continue through the week, we are at Skywalking Pod for Twitter and Instagram. And we also have our Facebook group, our Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook group. So if you would like to join us there and comment on covers for classic Marvel Star Wars comics, because that's where we post those, you can request to join that closed group on Facebook, and then there will be 2 questions that pop up which you then have to answer. So make sure you answer those or we won't let you in the group. We're very stickler on that.
We are. And Randy, if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they go and find you?
You can find me all over the internet. Of course, randymartinez.net is my official website. Find me on Instagram at randymartinez40, on Twitter at randymartinez40, and then on Facebook, I am Hollywood Randy.
Excellent. And also I want to remind you guys that Skywalking Through Neverland, our YouTube channel, we are really promoting that, and this episode will be on the YouTube channel, as well as several other things, including some Star Wars Land construction updates. And
From Disney.
From Disneyland. And then we just started a new weekly YouTube exclusive show, which is called Archival Rewind. And Richard,
that is where I put to use the 20 years I spent in front of my VCR recording everything that I could. No, it's more like 30 years now.
30 years, yeah.
30 years of recording everything I could on Star Wars and some Disney, and I uploaded it to my Macintosh, and now we're going to start uploading that onto our YouTube page, so there's lots of great content coming your way.
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that I didn't even find on YouTube, so it'll be very exclusive.
Yeah, so for all you classic
That's
vintage
cool.
lovers, it's a good channel to follow. So make sure you go to youtube.com/skywalking through Neverland to find those videos.
Yes, and please subscribe.
Yeah.
And if you see us out in the wild somewhere at a convention or just at Disneyland or anywhere, if you come over and say Forp, we just might have a button for you.
Woohoo!
All right, now for classic Marvel Star Wars comics, this is Richard
This is Sarah.
This is Randy.
saying Forp
Gronk.
Brakash.
Bong.
Aruga.
Pablo just tweeted out, those sound effects never made it to Star Wars, so they are not canon.
Ah!
We must cut that out.
You mean flame?
Nice.
We will allow that, thank you.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking.
Now, Quarg takes Leia as prisoner to the jammer, but Leia attempts an escape and double fists punch. Now, Quarg takes Leia as a.
All right, we'd like to thank Rob Dellinger for doing all of the
One more time.
what is it called? Jingle?
Oh, the opening theme.
Well, we'd like to thank
One
Rob
time.
Dellinger.
One more time.
Oh, I forgot to mention Leia's square buns.
We're gonna end it right there. And scene.
Okay.